Before I turn off the call,
What time is it?
I'm John Wojciechowski. I think Burton, which means I am not in charge.
The microphone is over here though.
I know, but that doesn't, that doesn't do anything other than people on Zoom. So,
Oh,
and,
so we really have to talk about.
So I wanted to hear.
oh. Now that you're done eating, we're just gonna get a quick picture. So Brandon Long here, who's supposed to be here, he's just not, he just didn't show up and start taking pictures.
That's
He's a
creepy.
colleague, he's here, he's taking pictures, so he wants to get a big group picture of everybody, so, now that you're done eating, that way we don't get an eating picture.
Yeah, I was gonna take pictures while you're eating, because those are the best. Yeah.
Oh,
That will
So everybody up here, it's for the full room photo. All I saw was John's dome as it went across there. And then, I don't have quite everyone, but almost. Okay, up here, 3, 2, 1, everyone's happy and having a good time. No jokes have been told yet. All right. Floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. All right, where's our leader? There she is. There we go.
All right, so I just want to thank everybody for coming today. We do have this as a web-based format as well. So if you are participating web-based and you have a question, we ask you that you use the chat feature. And then our tech guide will then notify Joy that there is a question. For our question, since we do have web-based people, when a question is asked, if the presenters wouldn't mind restating the question for the microphone so that they can hear web-based before answering the question. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have if anybody needs a restroom break, they're just right across the hallway. There's also an individual restroom if you're wanting not the group restroom, just one individual one, they're upstairs. We also have our emergency exits in case of a fire or an evacuation. We have the one right here, and then there's also one on each side upstairs, as well as an AED is at the top of the stairs. We have a lot of people who are first aid certified in here, so if anybody is going to need it, that's going to be the place to do it because we've got the AED ready, and there's a lot of you guys that can save lives today, so you're in good hands. If we do evacuate, you're going to meet us just out at the Utah Safety Council sign in our parking lot. The other thing is, if you didn't have a chance to sign in, I'm just going to go ahead and put these on the tables. If you wouldn't mind just passing them around and just putting your name, the company you're with, and your email address. Also, if you brought a friend today or you spread the word to encourage other people to attend and you did not get a ticket, please let me know. And then that way you will be entered into one of our drawings. So for right now, we're going to go jump into Ask an Expert. I'm going to pass you along over to Joy, who's going to kind of go over everything with you and introduce our 4 amazing experts today.
Okay, so before I get started, if you did not get a ticket and you need to get your ticket, raise your hand and we'll just have her bring them to you very quickly. So I got 3 right here I can see. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to Ask an Expert. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our experts for this morning. Our first one, and I am going to read this because they are professionals. I want to make sure I get all of their information correct. Our first one up today is Gwen Young from Packsize International. She's manager of safety. Gwen is a versatile safety professional with proven leadership and training skills that foster a holistic safety culture throughout her organization. She focuses on continuous improvements collectively and individually. Gwen has a demonstrated record in implementing and sustaining occupational and product safety programs to ensure compliance with various global regulatory bodies, safety codes, and standards. So this girl's international. Currently, she and her team are responsible for maintaining global occupational health and safety programs. These programs not only meet the requirements of OSHA, for the United States, but also navigate the alphabet soup of other regulatory audit bodies. And if you're in safety, you know we have a lot of alphabet soups. So here we go. We've got CCOHS, which is Canadian. We have the SAWE, SAWEE from Sweden. We have it's the Arbeit something. Arbeit.
and I can't,
Arbeitsschlagen.
they say it and I nod and I just.
Which is part of Germany. Arbeit is work in Germany. Or in German, and the STPS, which is part of Mexico's safety program. Moreover, Gwen's team is tasked with implementing and verifying product safety and compliance for the company's box making machines. They adhere to various international machine safety standards and machine marking requirements. Gwen's philosophy changes the notion of safety first. And last year, or she challenges the notion of safety first. Last year, she introduced a new approach, safety always. This perspective recognizes that safety is intertwined with production and quality. Gwen believes that success is a collective effort, and her creative solutions, along with an open and honest communication, allow her to obtain buy-in and participation at all levels in the organization. So thank you, Gwen, for being here today.
Thank you for having.
So Gwen is our resident expert on risk assessments. Just kind of keep that in mind as we're going forward. We have Kerilee Burton right here to my left. Kerilee Burton works for the Department of Public Safety, Highway Safety Office, and is in charge of the team driver and CPS program manager. What does CPS stand for?
CPS, Child Passenger Safety.
Child Passenger Safety. Kerilee Burton is a seasoned professional with over 30 years of experience in child passenger safety field. She created the county's first car seat program with a local health department in California in the early 1990s. Later, when she started her family, Kerilee left her formal job, but continued to gain practical hands-on experience with car seat safety, raising her 5 children. So like herding cats.
Kind of.
Okay, yeah. In 2010, Kerilee returned to CPS and became Utah State's CPS coordinator, a position she's held for the last 13 years. She's an instructor for both the National CPS Certification Program and the Safe Travel for All Children course. Kerilee graduated from Brigham Young University in Public Health and Family Life and is a certified educational specialist, as well as a certified child life specialist. Currently, Kerilee is the CPS Teen Driving Program Manager with the Department of Public Safety, Highway Safety Office, and works with special needs families at Primary Children's Hospital. Kerilee was honored to be awarded the WISH Award, Women in Safety and Health Award in 2022. Congratulations, from the Utah Safety Council. Kerilee also graduated, you're gonna like this one. Kerilee also graduated from the Thunderfoot Clogging Academy in Bakersfield, California.
On a demo.
Her personal experience. She is willing to show you her skills upon request. We're going to talk about incident prevention today. Then over here we have Kandee Schnakenberg. She works for Medallus Medical as their occupational medicine sales manager, OccMed. Kandee is a seasoned professional with over 22 years of experience in workers' compensation and occupational medicine. Her expertise stems from her past employment at Workers' Compensation Insurance, Workers' Compensation Fund Insurance, First Med Industrial Clinic, Now Industrial Clinic, and her current position as the Occupational Medicine Sales Manager at Medallus Medical. Kandee is an expert in interpreting drug testing results and is knowledgeable in the technicalities of drug testing. She enjoys educating employers about reasonable suspicion. She teaches that class here at the Utah Safety Council if you need it. Okay, she enjoys educating employers about reasonable suspicion, return to duty programs, injury management, workers' compensation guidelines, and OSHA record compliance. Kandee successfully completed a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Phoenix. Kandee is married and the proud mother of 2 boys. She's an avid baseball and football fan and loves to watch her oldest son play. In addition, she's a NASCAR enthusiast and race car lover. Kandee is also the #1 supporter of Team Mayo Racing. And she's going to talk about injury management today. So once the injury has happened, how do we manage that? We've said last but not least, but the best of all. We have Naomi Recendez from Oakland Construction. She's claims manager there. So Naomi Recendez is a claims manager at Oakland Construction with over 15 years of experience in helping employees with their injury claims. She has worked alongside the Risk and Safety Department to implement various programs and training to promote a safe work environment. Naomi is a valuable force in the workplace and uses her positive attitude to encourage others to succeed. And I can promise you, she does have that positive attitude. She is inspired daily by her husband and 3 children and enjoys spending time with family and friends. When she's not learning to cook a new dish, hit me up next time. You will find her catching up on the latest TV series. And Naomi's going to talk to us about safety buy-in today. All right, so let's start with risk assessment.
All right.
Get it, Gwen.
Well, it's ask an expert, not listen to an expert, but we were asked to give just a general, thoughts on each of our topics. So with risk assessment, just while you're here and while you're thinking of questions, I want you just to expand what you're thinking about in the risk assessment. Most people look for the obvious things. What can they trip on, fall off from, get cut by or struck by? But think of the other unique risks that our work environments now have, especially post-COVID. So we'd like to kind of, explore some of those things. So when we're looking at risk, from my perspective, we now are a hybrid company. So we have a lot of work from home employees and we have, so there's risk there. We're also in a lot of Zoom meetings. So you have Zoom fatigue, new expectations that you're kind of available almost 24/7, it feels like, because of the Zoom, especially an international company. So the risks that come with stress management, and employees' health. So when we think of your questions, kind of just like, let's explore all that. And then also like, what's the do's and don'ts in risk assessments? So I'd rather be able to deliver what you guys are curious about than me just saying what I think is important. So.
Thank you. Kerilee? All right, well, I work for the Highway Safety Office. And so what we are concerned about is making sure that you all arrive home safely, that you all get to work safely. And if you're driving at work, everything is, you have used incident preventions. So you are using your seatbelt, you have your children buckled up the way they should. And I think about my subject matter, or where I'm an expert in is child passenger safety. And that is not something that you probably deal with at work unless you work in that exact field. However, I think, why are we at work? Why do we come to work every day? It is because we are supporting our families. Our families are the most important thing. Our children. Utah's children are the most vulnerable population that we transport in vehicles. And so we want to make sure that you know how to do it correctly. And it's amazing how technical it can be. So I hope that I am able to answer some of your questions today so that you arrive home safely. Kandee.
Injury management, just to give a small introduction. I do realize, I'm not a safety manager, but throughout my whole entire career, I've, been in relationships with safety managers, utilizing the back end of what happens after there has been an incident and we need to seek medical treatment, right, for that employee. There's many ideas and ways that you can manage that injury. If you're familiar with an EMOD rating, ways you can work with your medical provider to kind of see if, certain injuries are related to first aid only. No lost time, always make sure you have light duty, those kind of things. And just making sure you have a good, strong connection with your medical provider so that they understand what your needs are too as a company, so that they're prepared and ready to see your folks. And if you have light duty, make sure you push that so that nobody gets taken off of work, unless, there's some catastrophic related reasoning.
So my portion is safety buy-in. And I think it may look a little bit different depending on the industry that you're in. But overall, it's the same thing for employees, safety professionals, and then what that looks like as a whole company. I just have a few bullet points on, you know, what you can do in your own company to improve that, to engage employees, to get buy-in from your leadership. Overall, I know that we all care for employees and, sometimes we think, well, safety, it should just be a given. Everybody should feel like that is important. But maybe your company is at a different stage. Maybe you're just starting, you're new, and so you just want to get ideas on how to implement things, how to go about it. Maybe your company is not as new and you just need a refresh. So if you have any questions about that, we can tackle those and have just some ideas to get you started on where to look for to help you in that journey for your company.
Well, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna open up the floor. This is Ask an Expert. This is your chance to do that. All right, I realize it's not noon yet, but come. Now wake up. You want me to start you off with, okay, here we go, in the back.
Yeah, going with the fixing of injuries.
Right.
It's the physical therapy and all that. You see more of a turn towards a holistic or dry needling or anything like that that the insurance company will not cover.
Oh,
State the question for people online.
boy, that was a big question.
Yeah. Okay. So in treatment of injuries, you want to know if they're using other holistic methods
More so
that generally aren't covered by insurance. So things like acupuncture or.
yeah, dry needling, things like that instead of just like a traction, the old stuff.
Right, like home exercise programs and some of those things. You know, as far as my background and where I currently am, we are not, you know, referring people out for any of those kind of treatments. Now, if they bring it up, we do have options for them and we can, you know, give them a referral pad to go and try some of those things versus the traditional physical therapy or home exercise programs, you know, and anti-inflammatories. So we do have resources for it. We're not currently like pushing towards that way at the moment, but if a patient or employee brings it up and says, we hear it all the time, I had this in the past and it really, really helped, right? And so if that's the thing for them, what we want to do is just make sure we get that employee better as quickly as possible so they can get, you know, back to work. So if that's their treatment route and they believe in that, we're going to push them towards that way. Yeah. So.
All right, so let's start with risk assessment. You're you're in different industries. So what are the biggest, when you're walking through where you work, what is the biggest assessment you're seeing in your field? That's causing those injuries.
I mean, the first thing is just, you know, you're gonna be looking for your employees' behaviors. I mean, if you really start with the employee first and making sure their behaviors of whatever industry you're in, because then it could go across anything. So if they're in a warehouse, manufacturing, you know, an office setting, what's those behaviors? And are they raising any red flags for you? You know, when you're watching somebody in an office and they've got, you know, a file cabinet drawer open and they're just stepping up and over it because they need to reach for something else, that can be a risk. If you have requirements in your industry of PPE or they're walking through a certain area, they're supposed to be staying in walk lanes. You know, that to me is just being kind of situationally aware as the safety professional of what those are. So it can be kind of organic versus going up, you know, every time one of those safety people come out with their clipboard, everybody, you know, starts acting a little bit different, you know. But if you're just out and about and you're just doing your job, you can be looking for those things organically. But if you start with the people, and then you're gonna look for those obvious hazards of things that, you know, they're gonna trip on, that's gonna fall on them. Right now I see a lot, like we store things up on, you know, shelving and there's not, you know, and it's up high enough and it's not a way for it. There's not a net or a toe board. So it could easily just fall off on that person that's just innocently walking by. Next thing you know, something has fallen on their head, you know, and so, but I think that's the biggest thing is first, just kind of knowing your people, where they're working. Cause we just got our office people, you know, our accounting department, I'll even pinpoint, they're like, I don't know why you keep telling us we're supposed to read this. We don't have any hazards.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, you work on a keyboard, you're looking at, and so they just have this false sense that because of their job, that there's no hazards. They forgot all about all the ergonomic hazards.
Yes.
And you watch one of them run down the stairs without holding on to anything, it's like, oh, well, you do have hazards. So, but I think that's probably the biggest thing that could go in the industry.
So on the risk assessment side of things, we're working on redoing ours we do them annually, and we've engaged our safety team to try to become subject matter experts on that. So how do you take people that are not safety professionals? How do you try to get that buy-in of, I work with this every day, so it's not a hazard, even though we see it differently?
Yeah, so break it down. I mean, think about, so it sounds like you're trying to get your safety people more engaged.
No, we're trying to get our, what we refer, our hourly workforce to be
okay.
helping with the risk assessment.
So have the employees own the safety.
Okay.
Start off with really simple, just, checklists, like their startup, like, maybe 5 things that they should look for when they arrive, or even 3 things, and break it down. Like when you arrive to work, be checking, is your equipment all in, safe working orders, all the guards on? Is there any trip hazards? Maybe those are your first things that you start off with a small, but we think as safety professionals that, well, you just go look at your work environment. You should know what the hazards are. They're not knowing what to really look at. And plus we call it nose blind, it's actually sight blind. They're in it every day, so they kind of forget. So sometimes do peer risk assessment. So if you have 2 working areas, have this group do the morning assessment of this group and have this group do that one, because they'll see things that the other group has just gotten, nose blind to. They just forgot to even realize that they've been stepping over this, box, for 2 weeks and it's just still there. But the new group comes in like, why is this box there right where you guys have to do your work? So doing peer inspections on each other's areas, because for one, I'm the peer that's gonna have, somebody come into, so if you're gonna come and inspect my area, well, I don't want you to find it. I want, so it's a little bit of a peer pressure thing, but it's also a way to have each other's back. It's representative of having each other's back. And then your managers, not just have it be the employees. If the managers can't go through and do a casual, lighthearted risk assessment of just, hey, just a reminder, I need you to make sure that's picked up so you don't trip over it. Again, they come in with their little board and like, wrong. You're not gonna get the buy-in, you're not gonna get the participation. But if you're coming in because we're looking out for everybody, we have a thing that we say, see something, say something, but we added to it, see something, say something, do something. You can't just, the manager can't just, hey, that's wrong. Safety people can't just be, that's wrong, do something, be their partner and help them get it fixed. Hey, I see that that's in your way. Can I move that out so you can keep moving? But the peer inspections really will help because it, they'll think of it as a positive, they're, kind of peer coaching mentality, but yet, they're going to want to make sure their peers aren't finding anything that they haven't already taken care of.
Thank
Great.
you.
Naomi, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so on the safety buy-in portion, I would, discuss with your employees, make it personable for them and explain to them why you're having them do whatever assessment or checklist that they need to do, right? Why the inspection is needed daily. If you make it personable and you explain them why, the majority of them will start having that shift in mentality. And they'll say, okay, it's not just because they're going to get in trouble or because it's just something else for them to do, but they're going to understand the why behind that. And then for us, just similar to her slogan at work, we have care. So we care enough to speak up, care enough to look out for one another, care enough to bring it up to supervisors. If our equipment is broken down, don't just, keep going by. If it's broken, then, let the supervisor know so that they can get someone else to fix it. If your coworker is doing something wrong, care enough for him to speak up and say, hey, you're doing this the wrong way. Let me show you how. So it's just caring for one another. But I think if you make it personable, then, I think you'll start slowly seeing the shift in their mentalities.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So how do you, I guess the best way of managing an employee who's out on injury for months, but you have no light duty work? I know our HR director had mentioned, there's like third-party companies that you can send them to. I don't know the name of companies.
Okay.
But I guess what's the best way or suggestion of managing in-house, or what do you recommend?
So like not you, for you and not necessarily the insurance is managing it, but you have a little more
I guess
control.
Yeah, I guess both ends.
And is there a reason why you have no light duty at all? Or is it just the restrictions that were given to him that made you determine they're off work?
Yeah, they only basically had only one arm, like
Okay, okay, and he's been out for months,
5
or
months.
she, I shouldn't
Yeah.
assume, okay. I'm sorry. At that point,
So we're kind of, it's like one of those things where we.
you're in limbo,
Do every day.
right? And so he is back to work or not yet?
Yeah, he's back to work, but it's one of those things where we kind of have to find different things every day.
He can't do what he was, doing
Yeah.
before. Oh, okay. Well, I do know a lot of insurance companies have programs that if they do have, more of a traumatic injury that way, they can help them build skills where you can put them in a different position. I can't remember what it's
Yeah,
called. It starts with a V.
Occupational therapy.
It's voc rehab.
Voc
Voc
rehab,
rehab,
thank you.
yeah.
Yes. I was like, it starts with a V. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so maybe check with your insurance and see if they have something like that of a program. Or you could use a third party, like your HR was, mentioning. That way you can kind of either shift him in a different field within your own organization, or you're helping him build skills to where he can find, better suited work for what he's able to do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then there's another one here.
Not necessarily a question, but one of the things that we found that we have done in the past at our company is there's lots of nonprofits and charity type places that will have them do stuff for those charities. Like one time we would buy all the supplies and we made hygiene kits for the refugee center and had our people that were on modified duty put those kits together to donate them. So we've done stuff like that. And looked into different charities and things, so.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say as well, is there's volunteer return to work programs. Depending on your insurance carrier, they may have something in place where they can go to a charity location and work, and they track the hours, and then you pay the wage. So that way they can be contributing.
Thank you.
There we go.
So we are a drilling services company and we see a lot of fatigue management, incidents happening. And we are trying to come up with ideas how we can prevent that, talk to the, having instead of one driver, have 2 person in truck or 3, talk to each other. But, I know that you said that you work mostly with kids and safety, but maybe you have a different view of fatigue, how we can prevent that moving forward. Do you have any suggestions for us?
Like driving fatigue?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At the end of a shift, like a 10-12 hour shift.
Right.
driving Home 2 hours away from the mine site, and we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of people fall asleep. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just being aware and knowing that it's time to switch drivers. And it's definitely a big deal in traffic safety. And so I would just say that your education programs should, allow people to be vulnerable to that point, to say, hey, you know what, I can't do this.
I feel like that is one of the biggest issues we have, because mostly our employees are male. And their mentality is like, no, I can't do that.
Yes,
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
do
I
this.
can
So,
stop that.
yeah.
And we, as
Yeah.
a safety, yes, as a safety team, we're trying to talk to them, say, hey, you're feeling like tired, you need to take a break, and let us know. We have a day for you. It's fatigue day. You can have it during your work shift. Like, take it, use
Yeah.
it. But I feel like it's more the mentality, and that is the hard part right now. Is
switching,
that mentality.
Yeah.
switching the culture.
Well, and that's traffic safety is all about that, because we have to recognize it. If we don't recognize there's a problem,
then we're not gonna go get our child's car seat checked. And so it's the education that you can give them and give them the permission to be vulnerable and to be safe. So,
No
You need to-
judgment.
You need to find the cool kid in the group,
Yeah.
talk them into doing it, then everybody wants to hang with the cool.
there you
Yeah.
go.
We have that. It's the, I feel like I said again, it's the mentality of the.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
behavior,
behavioral.
yes, because we have a lot of training. This is something that we talk every day before they start their shift. We have our safety points. We talk about things that can go wrong. But I feel like it's just there.
Excuse
They're like, okay, I can do this. I can go home outside, I can go back to the hotel, you know? Or we have cases of employees who are finished their shift and they're done at night and they're like, okay, if I grab my car, I can go home instead of like spending the night and then wake up and go home.
Yeah.
I know I can spend more hours at home and that's like how we can change that.
Well, I think that it's important for us to recognize what we've learned throughout history. Because we look back to the 80s and 90s, and when I was a kid, seatbelts were not a big deal. But now you wouldn't be caught dead without a seatbelt. And so it's kind of a change in our safety culture. And so you can do that within your company. You can change your safety culture so that you're talking about these things, because we hear about this all the time. We didn't in 1992. So I think a lot of it is just the culture that you can create within your company.
And maybe make it policy that they have to take a break. You do? Okay.
What about afterwards? Like after their shift, like, do you require them to stay there and like,
So
You're not
we
allowed to
don't
leave
have
kind of a
something
thing?
that's like, stay at the hotel, like, don't move. But we encourage them and the supervisors are on top of that. Like I have experience going on the field, visiting the team. I hear them say, hey, if you're tired, just eat, order food and stay at the hotel and sleep, have your time. If you're fatigued, just let us know, you can spend the day. So we talk about that. We, at the moment, I don't think we have that policy saying, okay, after work and stay, don't do things.
No, we don't.
We
but
don't.
We have a journey management plan that we have set up, so it's expected anytime they're driving a certain amount or an extended period of time. Within 2 hours, they have to switch drivers or they have to communicate with whoever is expecting them. But it asks this, in this journey management plan, it asks them, how many hours did you sleep? How far are you going? Is there anyone traveling with you? They tally up all of their points and it gives them a score.
Oh, that's a good
If it's
idea.
within a certain level, so there are different levels. If it's above a certain level, they have to send it to their supervisor to get approval before they can even start their journey.
And also we track our DOT drivers, so you know that they have an amount of hours per drive per
Yep.
day. So which this is them actually track that too. So most of them, for example, our DOT, I know that I haven't seen any DOT driver have any issues with fatigue, things like that, because they know they can't drive.
Yep.
Cause if they have that, they can't drive.
So one thing I'd like to know, so have you guys done any metrics on like how many hours, like of their drive time or their work time of the accident, of knowing like the accidents are happening, even the post their work time of how many accidents and presented them with the metrics of this is your likelihood of having an accident that you're not going to return home to your family safely. Have you done those studies?
So we haven't pulled that data necessarily. We are in the process of doing that because we're global, so we have several regions. Mainly the one in the US is where we're having that issue. But we are going to be calculating, okay, per 2,000 miles driven, we have an accident every 2,000 miles or whatever we're gonna be presenting that as. So I think that will help.
Yeah, because especially if you can narrow it down to like the timeframes that those accidents are happening on their work, and also how many times that an employee's been injured or involved in an accident once their work time is ended, even though that's, it's just a informational, because it's not something you're gonna be held to. They made the decision to leave, but it gives you a talking point of that why are you going home? I mean, that you're going home, they want to get home to their family. But okay, the likelihood of you being involved in an accident during, after you've driven this much time is going to increase by this much percent. Having the metric sometimes especially, and, I'm sorry, gentlemen that are in the, room, but the egos are there and the heroic effort of I can do that. I can make it home. But when you remind them that the likelihood of you not making it home safely increases, that, we are asking is you to pause and giving them the more of the metric and talk a number to them versus you trying to convince them, no, it's just, we want you to be safe. They just look at us like, you're an annoying, Yeah. And then, making sure your instances per, like million miles, that frequency of your instances, put that formula in, of how,
Honestly, I've seen that doing for my manager's done that, but to pass it to the client when we have to do our safety, data to go back to work. But when we have an incident, we have to stop and, do the safety assignment and all that. So I've seen that, but I don't think we pass that to actually the drivers.
The drivers are gonna need the metrics.
Yeah.
You're not gonna convince them to make a change in their behavior unless they know a bigger why from a metric point of view. And, and that's almost in any industry. If you're trying to get that buy-in, just going by it's the right thing to do helps a certain, set of people, but it doesn't help people that those, we call them
individuals.
We call them red thinkers, that their brain is just wired to think a certain way. So if you present all of those whys, once in a number, once in a, heart, so we call it, you're gonna talk to their head and you're gonna talk to their heart. There's a lot of people that respond when we're talking to their heart, but some of them you're gonna have to talk to their head.
Yeah, well, not,
Questions and comments in a row here, so you're backing out.
sorry.
Oh, I didn't come here to what?
Okay, I
So-
saw response right here.
So just to say, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna tag along with her. You have to show them the big picture. So it's not just making it personable, but you also have to show them stats and then reach out to like other companies that compared in your industry and see what they've done that has worked. And then you can, try to apply that.
Hold that thought, because that'll be the end to the end, okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment if I could about, we're talking about driver fatigue, and I think one of the things that we forget about is how much caffeine are we drinking, how much energy drinks, how much sodas, that they're drinking through their day to get through their shift, and then once you're done, there's that crash. So there's always that exercise, caffeine drinks, energy drinks that are out there that these days.
Yeah.
To get through.
My constant run of Laffy Taffies is not good. And it can be a huge issue because like our guys, they're so isolated in these areas where there's a gas station maybe 10 miles away, but that gas station is all they're gonna be able to have for food and drink.
Right.
So the obvious choice is what's gonna give me energy. We've had a lot of
I have a special one that he lives for those 5 hours energy.
Oh.
Yeah, so every time I see him on the top or like at the field, it's like I hide it. He comes in, I hide it, but he knows that it is me, so it's kind of funny, but we have that conversation, but they for all that caffeine, go with 5 hours energy, whatever.
Wow. What happens in the 6th hour?
Don't talk about.
I've got a question.
Yeah, I have a very strict seatbelt protocol put into my company, and I just
Right.
go through that very thoroughly. And I go through not just at work, but also at home. So I have a lot of new employees from out of the country that do not have that from their country. They're learning a different culture here. So I did have a couple of ladies that just had babies recently, did not know that babies need to be in seatbelts. And I don't know where to direct them. On
Yeah.
where to get maybe car seats for their kids.
Yeah, perfect.
And what a safe car seat, and it's not in English, so.
So I think that as a society, we need to realize that getting your car seat checked is a thing. It's a real thing. And this is something that a lot of people just do. And some people think, what? They don't realize that that's a big deal. But what we're doing is we're taking a seat that has been manufactured for an adult to sit in, and then we're putting a child in it. And so we need the engineers to create those car seats, and then we need to install them the way they've instructed us to install them in order for them to be safe. And if you're dealing with people from out of the country, they just, exactly, and we deal with that with refugees. Yeah, that it's just not part of their life. They don't realize, but when they get here to the United States, it is important. And so we do teach that through refugee organizations, and we do offer car seats. So highway safety, what we do is we offer grants to help with highway safety, to educate with highway safety. And so I get car seats and I give them to different organizations who have trained individuals. So in order for them to get car seats from us to give to people who are needy, then they have to go through a training and become nationally certified as a technician. And we have like 350 technicians throughout Utah. We have about 104 car seat inspection stations. And so to know where those are, you go to clickit.utah.gov. And then the first thing that you will see there is you can check to get, you can click on a bar there where it will take you to a map feature, and you can see all the inspection stations that are in your area close to your home. And so you just put in your zip code, your city, and the highway or the Utah Safety Council is a check station. And so they can come here and get their seatbelt checked or get their car seat checked. And so you just go to our website and you can do that. We also have education there, and we have brochures that you guys can print out and give to your people so that they can understand the importance. I even have brochures in every language you can imagine if you contact me. And I can give you brochures so that they can read them in their language.
That's what I need.
Yeah, please contact me and I'm happy to give those to you. So yeah, it's just, you know, like when I think of risk assessment, just sitting here when you're talking about it, I was like, wow, a car seat check, that's a risk assessment.
It is.
You know, I very seldom check a car seat where I go, oh, yep, you're all good to go. It almost always there is something that needs to be changed. And a very conservative figure is 4 out of 5. Or 60%. We hear all kinds of different things, but in my experience, it's like 95%. And so it's really important that people who are coming from different countries realize that they're in the United States now, and people drive really fast. And we have a lot of cars out there. And so we have a different culture, and we need to teach them. So I'm happy to give you as many resources as you need for that.
So on the education, does that tell them what the risk of besides for the child, but also the law and everything, so that they understand all that?
We do have the law on our website, and the law is really general in Utah. The law just basically states that you need to have your child properly restrained until they're 8 years old. I mean, how many 8-year-olds really do fit in a seatbelt correctly? It's often until 9 or 10. And then also, I mean, the law is the minimum requirement, but we do teach the law. We teach the importance of the law. Mhm.
Does anybody here need a car seat or know someone who needs a car seat? If you do, reach out to me or Nicole or Stella, and we'll get you
Yes,
trained.
there are a lot of places where you can get low-cost seats. You can send them to health departments, Primary Children's Hospital, Primary Children's Lehigh now is open. And so there are a lot of places where you can get low-cost seats. And then there are events that happen, or like a Utah Safety Council who has them available free.
What was the?
It's clickit.utah.gov. And that's where you will get just a ton of resources. You can pass them on to people.
Can I ask something? This is about not drilling, but did you teach this or show this in the schools where, for example, I'm a Latina and I I know a lot of Latinos around.
Yeah.
Just moving here. And most of them, they don't know anything like about resources or things like that.
Yeah.
So do you talk about this at school? The kids have.
Yes, we
information from
do.
parents or things like that?
Yeah, there really is, a problem with different cultures,
Yes.
not just Latinas, but, you can go on our website and we have a page just for you. And so we have everything that we print in Spanish. So you can
Oh,
get
yeah.
all of that in Spanish. And it's a great concern to us. I have a grant that is directed just for refugees, Latinas, the Indian reservation, just all of that. And so we are very concerned as well. And our grant money goes specifically to get those messages out.
And adding to you, I mean, not a faith, but I understand what you're trying to say. There's a lot of changing the culture, the mentality of people coming from a different country is hard. Like I went back to my country after 17 years, and as I remember when I was there, seat belts or car seat wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
Like you could go in a car without car seat and seat belts. I went back after 17 years. And everyone was like putting car seats, talking about seatbelts and things like that. And I was like, okay, something happened.
Yeah.
And it's the culture and the country changed.
Yeah.
The law changed. So
That's
now
right.
there is like, they need to have a car seat. They need to use seatbelts.
Mhm.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
Change mentalities, but like it's possible.
Yeah. I think what's happening is we are not seeing people without car seats at all as much as we are seeing people that don't use them correctly. And it can be just as traumatic.
As far as Utah Safety Council, like we are in partnership with the Labor Commission and Utah OSHA. We have funding to help communicate to the Spanish speaking community that, being safe on the work site will not affect their citizenship status. So we're putting things in motion to help communicate, labor rights with the Mexican consulate here in Salt Lake City. We have funding to teach OSHA classes in Spanish, traffic classes, alive at 25 in Spanish. And so we are making some very good investments and concerted efforts to help support that community. Is that right, JP and Fabiana?
And just like you have resources for, our community, there's also resources for your company. So again, reach out to the Utah Safety Council. They have resources to help you how to, navigate risk assessments or kind of help you out to see where you're at in safety culture for your company. You can reach out to your insurance, your brokers. They have people that are specifically hired to help you out and navigate this. So whether you don't have a safety program or you already have one that you need to make changes to, they can help you navigate that. If you have a problem, like, you were stating that you're having issues with people driving after a long shift, they can reach out nationwide and then give you all those resources. So yeah, it's not just for our community, but for you as the employers as well.
I have a question on injury management. What are 3 important tools to have a successful injury management program?
3 successful tools. First and foremost, make sure you have a great safety manager, which I'm assuming you all do because that's why you're here. So we need a great safety manager that understands Labor Commission guidelines in terms of what can be considered first aid, and how they can take part in coordinating that with their medical provider. A simple sprain or strain, especially if it's a new employee that's not used to maybe doing a lot of manual labor, they're gonna get sore, right? Just as if I started going to the gym and I started working out muscles that I haven't used for a while, I'm gonna get sore. So is that necessarily an injury, right? Just having somebody with that knowledge, or the ability to give them that knowledge so that they can manage that employee well, We see a lot of the safety managers do come into the clinic with their employees, and I think that's important as well. So having somebody come down with them doesn't mean they're gonna come in the room during the treatment, but it just helps show support. And then it also reminds your medical provider or clinical staff that, you know, you need to monitor that in terms of first aid, because it all goes down to your EMOD, and a lot of you are in construction. So another tool would be understanding how your EMOD rating works and how having light duty and even trying to manage and keep claims as a first aid only treatment, you know, how it affects that EMOD. And I think the goal is everybody needs to be 1% or lower, basically, to help your insurance premiums and even help when you bid for jobs, because companies use that rating to see how safe your company is and if they want to bring you on as a subcontractor, right? So learning that and knowing, you know, the difference in how that EMOD rate can change based off of where that specific injury falls in terms of first aid or light duty or off work.
Do you know where I can find that EMOD number? It's
NCCI report that you get from your insurance company. Okay, yeah, so they give it out, I want to say it's in July, right, in the middle of the year. Yeah, so make sure that you do get a copy of that and you are going through it, so that you understand that. That will help you maintain the injury too on the back end. And then last but not least is, again, communication with your medical provider. It's really important they have your specific needs, your specific protocols. Like for us, if say you might have over-the-counter ibuprofen on site, I think like every company does nowadays, right? So just making sure you have specific protocols set up to say, basically, like, don't prescribe ibuprofen, we can give it, you know, in the office, those kind of things. Really any over-the-counter medication, right? We don't want to prescribe, because then that automatically makes the injury not a first aid. So there's different ways to kind of maintain those. And it's important to communicate with your medical provider so that they understand what it is that you're looking for. And that if you have light duty, all those kind of things, so that they're not taking people off work and causing your EMOD rating to, you know, fly high, especially when you have light duty available. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For us personally at Oakland Construction, it's important that we partner with a provider that's going to also listen to our needs. So we want to, first of all, make sure that our employee is well taken care of and they receive the medical treatment that they need. But we also have, like she said, you know, stats and things like, we don't want them to just be taken off of work just because they're, you know, they have a sore muscle or anything like that. And we do provide light duty, but the communication with your provider is very important, and you want to make sure that you pick one that you're comfortable with, that your whole company is comfortable with, and they're going to respect what you know, the agreement that you guys have or the policies for your company. And then make sure that you guys are reassessing that every year.
Yep.
So follow up with them, say, hey, I'm just, you know, we're just going to do a checkup. Is there anything that we can do better? Anything else that we can do for you? How do we make it easy for you, provider, to take care of our employees? And then vice versa, if you guys get any complaints from employees,
Yep.
you know, listen to that and then address those that are needed with the provider. I mean, it's an open communication back and forth. And if ultimately it doesn't work with that provider, then, you know, it's probably a good idea that you shop elsewhere.
Yeah. And here in Utah, we have plenty of options.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's lots of people out there that can help serve you. So.
Yeah, just on that subject, like a lot of providers do not know what the company does. For example, I work for a printing company. So when I send somebody, then they set this up with Kandee to have the doctors come to my plant. Because when they entered picking up a bundle, because they were feeding a pocket, what are you gonna think? What are
That
doctors
means,
about?
yeah.
Absolutely not. They know nothing of it. So I actually have the doctors come to my plant, know what we did, what my likelihood work is. So they knew exactly when they're injured, what they were doing, what they're able to do, and have that communication. And it actually has worked quite well.
Yep.
So it's worked with, keeping people keeping them off and being off work for any reason. I have the light duty available. They know exactly, a lot of it is just actually first aid lately. Mainly events, because it's like just been strained. We've been dealing with it immediately. They also brought the physical therapist that gave me ideas of how I could improve areas.
Yep.
To where it would stop having any possible risk injuries in the future. So that is, it's an idea.
Yeah, have those job descriptions, so work with your HR department to have those job descriptions readily available for your providers.
Yes, we like to read those.
Make sure
so.
that, pictures, you
And
know, there's been
pictures,
times
yep.
where somebody gets injured and the doctor's like, I'm not quite sure I follow, I don't understand how they got hurt. And it, you know, again, our employees are taken by the safety manager to the clinic and they'll be able to show pictures. Okay, you know, doctor, this is how, you know, what they were doing, this is what they were handling, this is the equipment, and that gives them a better picture of what they're dealing
And that,
with.
yeah, and that's why it's so important to have that safety manager there too, is because sometimes what the employee relays to the medical provider is
very different.
completely different than maybe what actually happened, or, you know, as Donna said, lifting bundles, they'll tell us, oh, those bundles are 100 to 150 pounds, right? And in reality, they're 10 to 20 pounds. So just even us coming and doing a tour like she suggested is so helpful, because we know even if the safety manager can't make it, we know that those bundles aren't 100 pounds, right? So they kind of, I mean, not everybody, but we have people that will try and push for us to take them off of work. So just making sure your provider, you know, isn't gonna fall into that and say, okay, they don't have light duty, I'll take you off of work. You know, it's just important that we know, so we don't, because we want to make sure, of course, we give good care to your employees as well, but we also realize there's a back end where we need to take care and help the company as well. Okay, so, and that's an option. So don't be afraid to call your medical provider and figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah, that probably should be in your protocols, just letting the provider know, hey, if you're thinking about putting someone off work, give me a call
Yep.
first so we can talk about it. You know, again, that comes back to that relationship that you have with the provider. So if I send someone to Kandee's facility, I know that she's gonna pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what the employee is saying. Can you help fill in the gaps? You know, I have your safety manager here. Again, it's just having that relationship with them so that there's open communication all the time.
Do you have any advice for like the long-term care management cases? Basically, we have problems where it could almost be a personal medical degenerative condition
We love those.
to where we have a lot of support, like we really do, from our insurance, from even our company has like specialists in workers' comp. And yet we still have these cases where they're never getting off restrictions. And is there any hope? Do you have any?
Have you?
IMEs have been used.
Yes, they have.
um,
Okay.
Doctors have suggested exploratory surgeries for one, where they were like, no, we're not doing that.
Oh,
So-
yeah, no.
So just curious if you have any other advice on how you would manage a case where it seriously looks like it leans towards a personal medical degenerative long-term.
Have you, like for us, we will refer to specialists that kind of have a workers' comp background as well, so that they're not caught off guard. And I have a few relationships with some of these specialists that they will tell the employees, you know. So again, it's finding that partnership of somebody that can help refer that employee maybe to somebody that's gonna say, this looks more degenerative. I feel like, you know, if you can't go back to full duty at this point, that this might be something that you're just gonna be living with for the rest of your life.
With providers, like specifically specialists.
Yeah, so what pops into my mind is like a physiatrist. So that's somebody that manages back pain kind of, but doesn't do anything surgical. So it's more of somebody that handles with degenerative, you know, back related cases, or even like elbow or like tendonitis in your elbow. I mean, that could have came from anywhere. You know, some of those things that are hard to determine if it actually happened due to an incident at work.
You're saying there's hope.
There is hope.
It might close.
It might
someday.
close. Are they still doing
Yeah.
therapy and some of those things
All the
or?
things,
all the
all
stuff.
things,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there comes a point where your insurance will kind of push this
Yep.
too, where it goes into, okay, you know, specialists, give me is this as good as they're gonna get? And then it goes into the IME. And then from there, you work with your HR department to figure out, okay, is there a place for them to come back to? Because if it's severe, they'll have permanent restrictions. And so you may or may not be able to accommodate at that
accommodate,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any magic numbers as far as timelines go that insurance companies may use or? Like, hey, we're a year in and, you know, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
So my HR is right here, so I can just glance over at her, but I think the longest one we had was like 2 years. 3 years. 3 years, yeah.
What else is unique in this particular case was that we have a tendency to do a temporary to permanent workforce and the employee should not have transitioned, but we were fairly new site at the time and they did. So as it stands for managing the case, we don't actually have the control over the
It's
work.
the temp company that does.
So
Yeah, we're construction, so you know, it's just like the one I'm thinking of was the knee, so if you can't, I mean, the doctor specifically said construction will no longer be one of your things you
Yeah.
can do.
So
So
it's
at
just
that
kind of just
point,
finding
yeah.
a provider that's
We'll give you those.
willing
Yeah.
to, you know, be a little stern and say, you know,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
And
we've given you all of the
Correct.
treatment,
Mhm.
you know, that we can, and it appears that this might be something that you'll be dealing with, you know, either long-term or forever.
Yeah.
And so we might need to think about other employment or, yeah, different job
Yeah,
position.
and your
if that's
insurance
available.
adjuster is the one that you need to speak to, and they really need to, I mean, they do this, cause usually they'll escalate, if it's this severe, it escalates to a different adjuster that deals with
Yep.
these types of injuries, and so they know, and if they're not doing it, I mean, you need to really pick up the phone and push.
Yep.
So follow up.
yeah, my follow-up to that one is we also had a case where it was our employee that was injured and then their doctor wrote them into 12 months of restrictions on the light duty assignment that they had transitioned to.
He
So-
liked his new job.
With that being said, HR went to go and do an ADA accommodation to determine if there would need to be any sort of permanent restrictions, in which the same treating doctor wrote that he can perform any job with no restrictions. So,
Can't make this up.
what? In that case, so in that particular case, we do have control over the case. We are working to do an MMI with that particular doctor as well as going for the IME. But the issue is that the doctor themselves is a
Contradicts.
specialist but they're going around in circles because they've done 2 ADA paperwork requests. We've had 3 sets of restrictions modified in the past 4 months. Because every time this person is cleared to work and they go back to do what their primary job is, the pain starts again immediately.
Magically coming.
Just magically it re-manifests itself. So, and it's not to say that we don't look after our employees, right? But when they have, the experiment that happened was we asked them to do, they work in manufacturing, they were moved over to quality. We asked them to do a quality task that is done under manufacturing. They had no problems with it. But when it was told it was under manufacturing, the next day it came back as pain back in that particular arm. So it's just very complicated and there's only so many routes to explore.
To explore. Yeah, there's always gonna be
Mhm.
tough cases
Yeah.
and unfortunately, again, that's why the communication with your provider is so important because people will unfortunately abuse their work comp benefits to the maximum. Not everybody, but you know, those handful of people that do, kind of ruined it, I think, for the people that actually do
Yeah. that is-
get hurt at work too, because it's hard as safety managers to, especially if it's not something you can visually see, right? That an incident, you're like, oh, it's a pulled muscle or, oh, have you done MRIs or anything?
Oh, it was surgical. It got treated.
Okay,
And then we had a slowdown, so we weren't even working. And then when we were coming back up into production, that's when immediately the pain started. We transferred them on a temporary basis to the position that was within their restrictions. Then that's when the first ADA paperwork went through and said restrictions
For
are
12
there's no
months.
restrictions. keep him in this position. And then he went back to the doctor. And then there was an MRA in there, and then it was, after that, then they broke them into 12 months into the position that they're in, and then they went back for the second ADA paperwork. And then there went into another point in time when we went back for other restrictions. So like I said, I'm even having a hard time trying to keep up with all these different.
So
things.
is this a provider he chose or?
No,
can-
this is what they were directed to through the occupational.
Through the
clinic.
occupational clinic? Maybe what you can do is call your insurance and do a change of provider.
We might have to.
Yeah. Cause I mean, maybe if you have somebody more experienced on the workers' comp end as well. I don't know if this doctor is or not, but it kind of sounds like he or she may not be.
I don't think so. We're at the point in time where it's been 9 months post-surgery, so they want to do the MMI on that.
Yep.
But we're pushing for the INE as well.
Yes.
Because the most recent claim was that it's now causing deafness in his ear as well. So
Oh, goodness gracious,
it
okay.
keeps going.
It keeps going and going. Yeah, he needs a MMI date or, you know, if it ends up being permanent restrictions, then at least you
So be it.
have
That's what I'm
something to
saying.
take to HR and say, this is, you know, we
Yeah.
gotta either find something completely different or yeah, we're gonna have to, you know, let the individual go if they can't.
In the back.
So risk assessment. What's the best way to get your employees buy-in instead of it being confrontational? You know, you talk about the footboard and then you wanted to go, oh, I'm gonna do it on the parsing. Who can just decide to do a risk assessment or is it the safety?
I mean, anybody could decide to do a risk assessment in their area. So I think, again, empowering them that they are the ones that own their safety. They don't have to wait for the safety manager to say it's time to do a risk assessment. Building it into the culture, which, you know, that's what we are just in the middle of doing. You know, but, you know, starting off with then, what is your expectations of risk assessments? That are going to be required, documented, that you can be audited and held to, or what is just that, you know, teaching them to own it and getting that cultural shift, that mindset, you know, that mindset shift, that you really want. That's how you have a mature safety culture. You know, but you know, if you think about the employees that don't want to do it, it's usually the employees that are the ones that have their workarounds that they know if they volunteer to do it. And I'll tell you, I take almost everything back to an early childhood development. If I have my problem employee that's always skirting around a safety protocol, I put them in charge of the ones that's going to help fix it. Because now they're the ones that's going to lead a temporary committee to say, hey, we are going to go evaluate our work environment for trip hazards, because they're the ones that we've had a lot of tripping or hand injuries, that they've had their hands cut a couple times. So they're now going to be, you know, the chair of this temporary committee to look for all the risk for cutting their hands. You know, a lot of experience in it because they've had a lot of cuts. Yeah. But now they're the ones that are going to help fix the problem, and then their name's going to be behind it. So we do a lot of that peer coaching, peer application, because it puts them in now the role that they're now the leader, and they're not hearing it from the safety person. Because, you know, I mean, we sound like Charlie Brown's teacher most of the time to half of our employees, you know, we're saying things, but I think to get the buy-in is first, you know, just letting them know that you value their input. Every safety incident review that you do, once you've established that rapport, we don't even call them safety investigations any longer. We call them safety interviews. It just takes that word out. We're still doing the exact same things that we do in an investigation, but to them, we're scheduling a safety interview. And in that interview, we're asking, okay, after we get done talking about the injury or the, you know, whatever incident that we're doing the interview on, and we've had a good rapport back and forth. Is there anything else that the safety team needs to be aware of that can help you do your job safer and still maintain your production quota, or, you know, maintain, you know, your throughput? And it's amazing the other things that they'll tell you, and then you just thank them, and it's nobody's getting in trouble. It's just, you know, so they'll even say, well, I don't want to, you know, say because I don't want my manager to be mad. No, we're just going to put this out, and then the safety team will go and do a casual walk through and find it. But giving them a platform that they can report things. I'll let you know, I mean, our buy-in has just really shifted in the last year. You know, everybody thought that if they reported a hazard or a near miss or first aid, that their manager would get in trouble. So we went from top down. I started meeting with the CEO on his request after a bad incident. And he's like, well, what can we do? It's like, well, we need to start talking about safety. Safety can't be the afterthought. And so once we got his mindset lined with safety, then it became, where we just started. And you have to start somewhere. That risk assessment, you have to figure out where all the hazards are, but by trending out your incidences and managing them, in some categories and knowing where they're at. So you guys talked about your instances with driving fatigue. Knowing what those numbers are, you now can target that, but ask them I would ask those drivers, what can we do to prevent? We have this many incidences. So we went from reporting maybe, 40 in a year of hazards, near misses, and first aids. And I think at the end of 2023, I think we're like 160 of those cases reported. We went from 7 recordables to 1, and so we celebrated, we don't celebrate, days of lost time since our lost time. We just celebrate that we're doing the right thing and we're taking that. But really, getting that peer,
So you're celebrating the proactive. Side, not the reactive
Yep.
side.
and just, it's all about making a connection with them. Because, the safety professional is usually the safety cop. And, and the person that gets mad, I told my CEO that I'm either, I'm the safety BI or I'm the safety roadblock. And at first he wanted to go run and defend, me on that. And I'm like, no, if I am the roadblock, it's just learning. It's a growing pain for our company. We're doing something different than we never had done before. If I'm the BI, it's because they don't want to do it because they have a workaround. It's no different than when the police officer pulls you over in a 25 going 60 and they write you for a ticket that is 40 and they're still the bleep, 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 because they wrote you a ticket, you were still the one at fault and they gave you grace anyhow. So safety, we're giving the people grace on trying to do something safer, but because it's different and they can't do the shortcut that they used to be able to do, then we are the opposition. But if you turn around and you ask them, what could we do? What does safety need to know so that it can be done? You flipped it back on them. They're not going to make themselves the jerk. What if you had to be in my spot? Or if you had to prevent, your son or daughter, wife, from, getting injured, what would you tell them? How would you have them do it? And then, well, that's a great idea. How about we make that the next process? That's our next risk reduction. Because along with the risk assessment, you have to mitigate the risk. And then that's how you get, I think if you have to do them both. You can't just talk about always the risk of what's, this could hurt you, this could hurt you. You start talking about what can we do to be better? That continuous improvement mindset will get you further in your risk assessment all the way through each of our categories, right down to buy-in. Because if everybody's part of what can we do to make it one little part safer, it loops us all in together. We reduce the risks. We don't have as much to manage. And now we're managing, more of just what can we do better versus what can we fix or who did we hurt? So did that help?
Here in the back.
Okay.
So is there ever an acceptable risk?
Yeah, there has to be. Especially like if you're talking for machinery, you think of anybody who's got a metal press, OSHA's even declared an acceptable risk. That machine has, it has the capability of crushing somebody's arm off, but it has a job to do that it has a risk. But each company has to determine where their acceptable risk level is, based on their industry and the frequency of exposure. So you go through just your normal risk assessment. How often is that person doing that job? What's the likelihood of that hazard actually happening? And what's the severity of it if it does fail? So if they're doing that job every day and the severity is that they could be permanently injured, that's not an acceptable risk. But if they're doing that task once a year and the likelihood of it happening is low, and the injury is that they might have to seek medical treatment, but it would be something they would be able to recover from, the company would say, that's an acceptable risk because the likelihood is low. But most, think of, people that install solar panels on roofs. There's a risk there. Every time even if they have their, follow every safety protocol, there's a risk. Drivers, You know, there's a risk, you're on the highway and there's a whole lot of other people that don't have the same driving habits. So there's a risk. So does that mean we don't? And that's a daily thing that they're doing, that they're exposed to. You know, we can't say, well, no longer driving, it's an acceptable risk. So yes.
Right here.
That's a good question.
How do you do to teach safety culture or to help understand different ways that employees who have been working for a long time? It's difficult to change the mentality. Especially
You have the dreaded person that says, I've done this job for 30 years.
Leave me alone.
And I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think communication is very important. So like, I know in construction, you get that a lot where you get
Yeah.
someone saying, I've done construction all my life since I was 12 years old. I've done it this way. But just because they've done it that way doesn't mean that it's the right way.
And they've been
Um,
lucky.
Yeah, they've been very lucky, right? So like the one thing that I can think about at my work, cutting with the saw, right? It's like quick and they do that all the time throughout the whole day, every week. And we get a lot of hand injuries, right? And so what we started to do is we implemented safety alerts. Because I think sometimes in construction, you know, you're at your job site and all you see is just you, your work, and then those just around you. But as a company, you know, we started seeing like, okay, all of these jobs started having, you know, or do have hand injuries. And so we create an alert and we blast it out to all employees and they get to read about it, right? We don't include names or personal information or even what project it was at, but we do show pictures and we say, this is what they were doing and this is how you can prevent it. And so I think from there, slowly we start getting people saying, oh, okay, you're right. Maybe I should take the time to do step 1, 2, and 3 so that I can avoid that consequence. So, I mean, it doesn't happen right away, but I think with just communicating and letting them know that I understand that you have a lot of experience, but injuries, you know, they don't discriminate. It can happen to anyone at any given time.
Yes. How do you deal with the electricians? And.
That's very specific.
But we're having issues with them wearing protective clothing while they're doing their job. And there's a lot of pushback, What are some ideas with that?
So I don't deal with electricians, but I deal with hardcore non-users of seatbelts. And that's typically like a 35-year-old male who drives a truck. And, but, you know, we have a program in the elementary school, it's called Click It Club. And so we teach the kids how important traffic safety is and how important it is that they use a booster if necessary and that they are using their seatbelt. And guess who influences the non-users, the hardcore non-users? Their fathers who don't care about their seatbelt. Their kids are like, hey, Dad. And so I
I experienced that, yeah.
I think the important thing here is to get to their heart, that some of them in their minds, they just think, I've been doing this forever. You know, I've been doing this 30 years. And, you know, like people that say, you know, I never wore seatbelts and I was fine. I made it through my childhood and I didn't have a car seat. But I think we need to look at the why and the importance of it. Like, for instance, the law is just the bare necessities. We're only protecting our kids up till 8 years old. And so that's really not what's important. What's important is our kids' lives and our lives, our family. And so I think that the concentration has to be more on that.
I even put them on the safety committee.
Oh, there you go.
They would have to, but it was just a big argument of why it's too hot to wear safety clothing.
It's gonna be really hot when their skin doesn't breathe.
Yeah.
So one can happen if they don't, or it's good until it's not good.
Yep.
And that's really how it is. And I'm at Slick, by the way. And you guys all heard about our transformer that blew. Okay. No. But our electricians are really, they do a lot of hot work because we're at a university. They don't want to turn off the power because we're or at least at a college. So I really feel like they have to take the safe part and say, okay, if you're gonna do this that's dangerous, then let's get this that's not, that'll help in case something happens. We can do dangerous things safe. Exactly. But I mean,
Yes.
so I don't know what the
NFPA 70E.
So, okay, I was just gonna ask you if you knew what the code is for hot electrical work.
No.
Okay, so to do hot electrical work, and I wish I could rattle off the number, OSHA, 1910 something, but there is.
NFPA 70E.
But,
So
so,
NFPA, so the National
Right.
Fire
Right.
Protection Association, 70E. Okay,
and so there is actually a hot electrical work permit that is required.
right.
And so, right, instead of you trying to convince them, take the safety person out of it and go back to the code. That per code, this is what we have to do for you to be able to do the hot work. And because we want to do the hot work because of all of these other reasons, this is what we must do, or we get to shut everything down. And this is how we do it. I mean, it's back to, you have option A or option B. If we want to do it where it is the quickest, and you are the smartest guy on the planet, because Mr. Electrician, you've done this for so many years. You know the code because that's how you got your license. So that's what we have to do. And I understand that it's hot, but if we do it the right way, it's done quickly. You don't have to be in it. And I would also be looking at their hard hats and stuff. There are some ventilation hard hats now that are still within the electrical code I think that's for a lot of them, they put that hard hat on and, your heat escapes and they just instantly feel hot. They feel confined because that hard hat is on their head. I don't know what it is, but you have electricians, I have a whole bunch of engineers.
And trust me, there is not a student out there that doesn't want the power off so they get a break.
Exactly.
But going back to, and then if you're not using your hot work, permits, I mean, then I would line that up, because that's your protection and the company's protection.
So I walked into something, I'm really good at this, because when I started my first job, I walked into something, had to totally restart it over. This is the same kind of thing. They did a lot of things for facilities alone. And now we're taking it to the whole college instead of just one little teeny piece. And that little teeny piece was just maybe toolbox tops. That was their safety. And so it's a learning curve for them too. To have someone there that's doing something very different than they're.
Yeah, and and break it right down to that task. So, we think of risk assessment and it's that whole workplace, take it down to whether you call it a job safety analysis or a job hazard analysis. Do that risk with the frequency of exposures, likelihood of it happening. And there's a whole formula that gives them a number. It is very objective, not subjective. Because if it does fail and something happens, it is death usually. I mean, we're not talking irreversible, is it irreversible or not? Something in that level, it is death.
Right.
I mean, and so you go through the risk assessment of, okay, even if it's infrequent, if it fails, someone's, going to most likely die.
Right.
So now that's high risk no matter what. So because it's high risk, we have to do it this way, or hot electrical work is not going to be allowed. And it's the number that says it, it's not you. Just make it it's the code's fault.
Yep.
It's the standards fault. It is OSHA's fault. I mean, NFPA, that's what it says. I can't do anything. I'm not, willing to break the law, for this. But then go back to that, that talks to the head. Now, why do they want to go home safely? maybe if, you know, if it's a single guy and they're not a family, he's like, yeah, you guys all talk about kids. I don't want any of those little things running around. And I don't want a wife either, you know? So, okay, what is his, you know, form?
Yeah.
Family, occupation, recreation, money.
Yep.
Those are the things that somebody's going to connect to.
Yeah.
Find out what their why is. Is it something that, you know, they love, you know, skiing, they love motorcycle riding. We want you to go home and enjoy that. We always encourage our new employees to write their personal safety mission statement. We share our two committees' mission statements, and then we just invite them to think about what their mission statement is of why do they want to choose safety always? You know, and you know, so who is it? What is it, you know, in their life? I mean, we all come to work because we need money to do something. What is that something that makes us come to, you know, work? And then use that as that's also, you know, they're coming to work to earn that paycheck for something. That's also why they should choose to be safe always. So.
Okay. After we have that class, maybe if you maybe sending them to the class and then going back and having a little bit of accountability and then enforcing it might help. So if you reach out to our occupational department, they can come give you a little bit more information on that. But we do have the
NFPA 70. There's also NFPA 70C as in Charlie, and that is on maintenance of high voltage.
Okay. Cause I have all those books now, finally.
And I'm sure you've memorized all of them.
No, I really have everything on my desk all the time, so I could look it up. Nope, this is why. But we started with safety third. I don't know if you've ever heard of
What?
Safety what?
Safety third.
Very similar to safety.
Not safety first.
It's safety first, you wouldn't leave your house. I mean, really, and so we kind of.
I don't know, my house is dangerous.
I'm a safety manager and I live in Roy and I drive to Salt Lake to Taylorsville every day, and I've already been there.
You live in Utah. Does that really surprise you?
So, but yeah, it's been a hard thing to get.
Now, if you told me safety third, then I would say I can get to do whatever the heck I want 1 and 2, then I would, you know, but you know, you don't want safety first because they're looking at, well, my job, that's why we switched out of safety first.
Right.
But, you know, their production or then their quality. So ours is at Packsize, it's not safety first. And we say it all the way through. It is not safety first at Packsize. And we pause because we watch everyone's mouth go, what? And it's safety always because it's production always and quality always because we're in it together. It's who we are and it's what we do. That's our full statement.
Right.
You know, and then when we talk from a safety perspective, see something, say something, do something. I will always tell them, I will see something and say something always because I care about you. And it takes that care approach. But
Right.
you know,
The safety third, it's the dirty jobs guy.
It's on
Micro.
That put it out, and I just kind of gave it to all of them to watch. And
I had
it
never heard
really
that.
does make a lot of sense in a job where you've never had any encounter. So it's starting out slowly.
Yep.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. And I think that's the biggest key to everything that we're talking about is you have to start out somewhere. And you start out where you're at and you just set a target. You can't go from no safety culture to, you know, your volunteer, you know, safety program. You want, you know, you build it up and you just get better. And the one thing that you have to remember is you all know where your gaps are. Make sure you have your gaps identified and put it in your 5-year plan. Because if OSHA comes in and does an inspection and you have your things already identified of your gaps, OSHA's gonna give you a little bit of grace and know that you've identified and you're working, but don't make your plan for 5 years for yourself. Put your plan a little tighter, but that's what OSHA would expect is a 5-year plan for all of your gaps that you've identified.
Okay, well, we have run out of time for today. I do want to thank everybody here in the room with us and everybody online that has joined us. It's been great conversations. I would like to thank Gwen, Naomi, Kandee, and Kerilee for being here and taking their time to do this. I'm sure that they'll hang back a few minutes if others have questions that would like to talk to them that did get a chance to ask questions during this. And if not, you can reach Nicole at Utah Safety Council and we can help answer your questions however we can.
Yes.